Welcome to What's the Score, a series solely dedicated to the support of Central Florida's small business and entrepreneurs. Donated as a community service by AM 660 The Answer and Salem Communications. Now, here's Christopher Hart and Rich Jaeckle.
Hello and welcome again to What's the Score, the show designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business. I am Christopher Hart of the American Adversaries radio show, along with Rich Jaeckle from Score. Rich, how do you do this weekend?
Christopher of the Heart. Great to see you once again, my friend.
Thank you. That is great to see you as always. And it's great to have you folks in the audience with us today, as always. We appreciate you for tuning in, and thank you for telling your friends and neighbors about us as our audience is growing. And we please ask you to continue to do that. All right, of course, Score is the show, as I said, designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business by offering you a free mentorship program, Rich.
Free, everybody out there. You hear that word, don't you? Yes, we do. And we have some 55, roughly, counselors at this office, in the Score office here.
The local office?
Yeah, in the local office. And there are a variety of different skills, experience levels, etc. So you can pretty much get a counselor that fits the kind of issue or problem that you're having.
That's right, folks. And the best thing about this particular local office is because it is located at the Fashion Square Mall. And you can visit them any day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You can give them a call there at 407-420-4844. That's the Score number at the Entrepreneur Center. And there's a lot of good stuff that goes on over there. You can go in during the week and kind of see what's happening. You can go to their website, scoreorlando.org. And this is a national organization. 51 years in the making
51,
now.
That's it. And by the way, our local chapter is going to have its 50th anniversary here.
Really?
Yeah, in 2 years.
Is that right? So Orlando
was one of alarms out there.
Orlando was one of the first chapters then?
No, they were into it about 3 years.
I'll see. Well, that's fantastic. So scoreorlando.org is the website for the local Score office. Score.org is the national website. And the difference is at the national website, you'll find more in way of documents and things like that you would need to set up a business, in particular the legal type stuff. But at the local office, you can go to their website where these shows are archived, and you also have them on YouTube, you said?
That's right. They're on YouTube, and you can even subscribe to the show.
How about that?
Yeah, on YouTube, yeah.
All right, so that's all available at scoreorlando.org, as well as a schedule and explanation of the seminars that they have to offer. They always have great seminars going on. And let's see, the next free seminar is going to be March the 21st. That's a Saturday. It'll be 9:30 to 12:30 a.m., 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., I should say. I don't want to think it's going to be like 24
hours. That's an all-nighter.
Yeah, that's right. But it's your business idea, and how Score can help. And it is free. And it's an introductory seminar to sort of just give you a good feel about what Score is all about and what you need to do to get involved with Score.
Actually, I just taught that.
You did?
I did.
How'd it go? Was it a big class?
On Tuesday.
Was it a big class?
Yeah, it was about 25 people.
Yeah.
And they learned nothing. No, it was a very good class because people in the class talk out, about their fears.
And that's what it's all about.
What they really look for in starting a business, but what they're afraid of. And we talk about it. And so it's very interesting.
Fear is oftentimes a very healthy emotion.
Uh-huh.
And in particular, as you're starting a business, a certain amount of fear will, sort of be a sobering factor for you.
There you go.
But that's one reason why you need to go to Score, folks, is because they can help get you through that, get you through those times of, shall we say, uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah, what's a word for that? The self-doubt.
Yeah, self-doubt and angst and sort of that sort of thing. But these guys and gals over there, they do a great job. And once again, the cost of the mentorship program is free. That seminar that will be the March the 21st, Saturday morning, that is free. They also have many other seminars, starting your new business, marketing your business, building your financial plan, building your business plan. All of these you can find at the website, scoreorlando.org. Some of them have a charge. $30 is a typical charge. Some of them are $10, and one or two of them are $40. But these are all very good seminars that will help you really begin to develop a business idea into a business plan, into an actual business. and be successful at it.
I like that flow chart there. You just came up with that off the top of your head.
I tell you what, I come in here, I know what I'm going to say, but I never know how I'm going to say it.
Usually comes out gibberish.
Okay, and we got another great guest lined up for you today. We'll go ahead and introduce him, then we'll mention some of the events coming up, and then we'll get into this guest, what he's all about. Rich, tell us a little bit about him.
Well, first of all, I'd like to tell you, how we're always talking, I'm always talking to you about my wife making me a nonprofit.
Yep.
So we've been thinking about, doing a show on nonprofits, right? For a year now.
Yep.
We've been talking about it. Well, guess what? I happened to get a hold of our nonprofit guru counselor.
And of course,
we dragged him kicking and screaming into here today. And here he is sitting next to us, Martin Tier.
Martin Tier, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And Martin is a SCORE counselor, and his area of expertise is nonprofit organizations.
That's correct, yes.
How long have you been with SCORE, Martin?
I've been with SCORE for about 4 years.
And what brought you to SCORE?
Well, when I first started the business back in 1985, I made a couple of calls to SCORE in Sarasota, and they were very helpful. And I was very impressed. And at that point, I decided when I'd retire, I am going to volunteer at SCORE. And so the first thing I did after I retired was to sign up with SCORE as a volunteer.
Why did you want to do that?
Well, I meet great people like you, for one thing. And,
your nose is growing.
But I had a lot of other people who had gone to SCORE, too, that I knew were in business at that time, and they were all very impressed. And I thought, what a good thing to do, just for my own personal benefit, because people come in and they're excited about a business, and they're scared, or they don't know what to do. Some things that they're really scared about, they shouldn't be. The things they are not scared about, they should be. And so helping them to understand that is, I think, a challenge and a fun thing to do.
Cool.
I'm glad you brought that out, Rich and Martin, because there's something about an entrepreneur that we haven't really focused on, and it kind of began to materialize in my mind a while back, and that is that when I considered why people join SCORE as volunteers, you get a great deal of satisfaction, do you not, out of helping people out?
Definitely. That is the greatest satisfaction. When you're sitting there and waiting for people to come in and walk-ins, you never know what you're going to get, and you get all sorts of things. And I was kind of concerned when I first started that I would not be able to give anybody really good, because I hadn't had a lot of background in business. I had a lot of background in nonprofit. But I was so surprised at what I could give to people when they came in, how much I did know. And so it surprised myself how I could help them with just little things that they were not aware of.
And the reason I bring this up is because that is one of the underpinnings of entrepreneurship, is that you're wanting to make other people's lives better.
Good point.
And if you can make a few dollars in the process. But if watch people on Shark Tank and these other programs, they're there with ideas to make people's lives easier and better, and they get a thrill out of that.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, you're sort of feeding that thrill, the need for that thrill sort of by being a volunteer at SCORE. It's a different type of entrepreneurship, but you're still living that entrepreneur spirit.
Definitely. That is the driving factor, I think, for all the volunteers, is that interaction with the people and see them doing really well in something that they want to do.
It's a sort of a different but in a way, a sort of customer relationship.
Do you know that Thomas Edison had over 1,400 patents, and only 30 of them or so were ever used? And when asked about that, and the person who asked him said, well, what do you think about those 1,370 failures? He said, what failures? Those were just experiments that didn't work, so I knew not to do those anymore.
Yeah, he said
those were successes.
Yeah, that was exactly. He said the same thing with the light bulb. There was many hundreds of attempts at making the light bulb work. He said everyone was a success because it showed me that wasn't the way to do it.
That's it. And, that's an interesting way of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Martin, what was the business that you were in?
I was doing consulting for nonprofits and for small businesses when the PC started to come out. I'd had some background in computers, and I knew how they worked. I knew how databases worked. And so I was helping them understand how to use the PC. They would have this computer, and they wouldn't know how to use it effectively. And so I thought I had the ability to tell them how to use it for their business, and how, particularly nonprofits, how to use these the different programs to write grants, and how they could write a grant really quick. Before, you would have to type it out on a typewriter, and you would literally cut and paste things into a grant application. But this way, you could cut and paste virtually without having to take all that time. And so you could do a grant much quicker than you could in the old ways when you were using just a typewriter.
Or when I was doing it, when we had to do the chalk writing on the cave walls.
But that's interesting that you say that, because there were a number of companies that chose not to pursue computer technology. I think Xerox was one, because they didn't think anybody would be able to use the machine. I thought it was a great machine,
too
but
expensive.
What would anybody ever do with it?
Right.
And so what you did was showed people what they could do with it.
Exactly.
And
That's what I did.
And obviously, guys like Bill Gates, who had the foresight to see that this could be used for purposes that were now mundane tasks, basically people sitting at desks with pencils and calculators, that these could all be redone with computers at a much greater speed and accuracy. So what are you into now besides SCORE?
Besides SCORE, I also do life coaching, and I help people with different issues. And I'm a positive coach, a positive psychology coach. I work on the good side of what a person's abilities are. Most people are more concerned about what their weaknesses are, and you cannot probably increase your weaknesses as much as you can increase your skills and your strengths. Yes, and so that's what I help people do, is understand what their strengths are and do better. And it helps people, particularly small business people. I deal a lot with small business people who are sole proprietors, and they just do not have the right frame of reference for what they need to do. So I give them another frame of reference about how to operate and what they are really good at, and that helps them much more than trying to work on their weaknesses.
Okay, we'll talk about this more after the break. When we do come back, we'll be talking with Martin Tier. He's a SCORE counselor, and his specialty at SCORE is nonprofit organizations. We'll get to that. And we'll also mention the upcoming events, including the Arnold Palmer Invitational Golf Tournament, which SCORE is going to be
4.
3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. Please don't go away. Okay, welcome back to What's the Score, the show designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business. Today, we're talking with Martin Tier. He's a SCORE counselor. In particular, he counsels on nonprofit organizations, and we'll be talking to him a lot more about that throughout the hour. Right now, he is also a life coach. And I like the approach that he has. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But, Rich, you wanted to say
Chris,
something.
that he would just have a field day in my head. Like he gets into people's heads and stuff. Geez, he'd be there for days.
It'd be like picking a barren field looking for your strengths, right?
Getting a needle out of a stack of needles.
All right, we'll get back to that in a second, but I want to mention some great events that are coming up besides the free seminar, which will be March the 31st, Saturday morning, 9:30 to 12:30, how SCORE can help you in your business idea. But we also have, of course, BizFest coming up. Make sure you put that on your calendar. That's May 19th. We talked a great deal about that last week. You can reference last week's show on YouTube or at ScoreOrlando.org.
That's right. Or, Score Orlando.
Yeah, or you subscribe, and as soon as they put it up on YouTube, it'll come right to you as well. But also the Arnold Palmer Invitational is coming up, and I believe that's next week, isn't it?
It's, let's see, the 16th is a Monday.
Yeah.
So it starts, the 18th?
Yeah, so that Monday there will be a free business expo at Bay Hill at the Country Club, and you can go out there. It'll be free. And Rich will be there.
I will be there, right. And some of the golfers will start rolling in then, but probably not a whole lot. But you'll get to see the clubhouse because that's where it's going to be.
Yep.
You'll get to see the grounds. You get a free pass of the grounds. It's all in all, the expo is pretty interesting because it's you'll be getting educated on how to build a website on a shoestring.
That's right.
And it's free.
Web.com will be there.
Web.com, right.
And SCORE will be there. There'll be other organizations there. And what time does that start again?
That starts at 9.
9 o'clock at
9 o'clock.
At Bay Hill Country Club. Just head on out there and tell them you're out there for the Biz Fest.
No.
They'll be mixed up here.
There we go.
The Business Expo. And it will be, they'll direct you right there to it.
Yeah, or go to our website.
There you go, SCOREorlando.org.
And you can get a free parking pass.
Hey, that's the best part of all.
Right. And it's a VIP parking, so you get to go in and park on one of the internal lots.
All right, just don't park in Arnie's space. That's it.
That's right. That's right.
All right, and but Arnold Palmer will be there this year. He may not be there on Monday, but he will be at the tournament this year, you know. And Arnold, he's a great guy, and you need to get out and see Arnold Palmer. He is really a fantastic individual. And Rich, as I say, will be there too, so you get a double treat. And there also is, of course, still going on the Veterans Business Initiative, and that is it's this week it'll be on Thursday, and it's at the Entrepreneur Center, and it starts at 9 o'clock. And if you'll be there in the morning, you can get a free breakfast. If you're a veteran and you haven't been to one of these, you need to go. If you've been going to them, you need to keep going. They'll help you with jobs. They'll help you with training for a job or to get you back into college. And they have entrepreneur programs there as well. And on March the 12th, you guys will be there, right?
That's this Thursday.
Yeah, that's this one coming up. That's right.
Yeah, so a week from today.
Yeah, so head on out, and that'll be this Thursday coming up, and it will be, once again, free. So you veterans, please come on out. If you haven't done it yet, you still have time to do it, and there'll be a lot of great organizations there as well.
Yeah, we talked about this, but one of the things that that is interesting to me is that there are educational institutions there.
Yeah.
And that they are offering deals for veterans, like certain scholarships or incentives or something like that to attend their technical school or their university. So, those of you who think that a university degree is everything, we had a gentleman in here a few weeks ago, remember, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
That said, what did he say about the, in 20 years?
He's going to make sure his kids know how to do plumbing, because in 20 years, there'll be very few of them around, because everybody's going to be wanting to do things, having to do with computers.
Yeah, techie stuff.
Yeah. This Thursday coming up, along with SCORE, Amtist will be there. Amtist, of course, is the organization run by Barbara Stankowski, and she's looking to hire people.
Yep.
And these are good-paying jobs. Yep. Regions Bank will be there, and ITT Tech will be there.
That's right.
And the following Wednesday, UCF will be there in Florida Hospital. So there's a lot of great stuff going on at the Veterans Business Initiative.
So far, 4 candidates have been hired out of this effort.
That's great.
Hired.
So come on out, and maybe you'll be the 5th, folks. Martin Tier, life coaching, you were talking about, that's what you're into now. This is something that we could probably all use a little bit of. But your approach is not to focus on people's shortcomings, so to speak, and try to get people to do something about them. You focus on people's strengths, making them stronger to help carry people forward and be more successful.
That's correct. I help individuals, and I've helped groups understand each other's strengths. A lot of times, groups will not understand why a certain person behaves in a certain way, and they're actually playing to their strengths. And you find someone who is very good salesman, outspoken, someone who is always talking like Rich.
How did I get into
always
this?
Talking about actually, always
being innocent.
Always talking about actually saying something.
But some people who are more analytical don't understand that, and so they need to understand how to work with a person like that. How in the world do you begin to evaluate one's strengths? Well, there are tests out there that are very inexpensive. You can go. There's called the Strengths Finders, put out by the Gallup company, and they've had that out for a long time. and they have a test it just costs $9 to take, and it takes about 15 minutes, and it pretty well identifies what your strengths are. And there's about 32 strengths that they identify, and they run a full gamut of what you can do. And so you just analyze those, and you take your top 5 and try to work on your top 5 and improve those rather than the ones that are way down, 25 to 30 or something like that, which you probably are not going to make much headway in.
Stride
in compared to what your strengths really are.
This may seem like an obvious question, but I'll go ahead and ask it. Do people who are very successful work on their strengths and sort of ignore their weaknesses, and if people who aren't successful, is it sort of the opposite?
That is exactly correct. And during the last Olympics, there were several track athletes who mentioned that when they were interviewed after they won their events, that they had forgotten it. They didn't forget about their weaknesses, because you want to still try to improve a little bit, but you concentrate more on your weaknesses. On your strengths than you do your weaknesses. Because they attributed their performance to doing that.
You build on that strength.
Exactly.
You kind of can't build on weakness. You have to turn that around. But you can build on strength. And if that's that strength that's gotten you to where you are, and you build on it, it will, I presume, take you much further.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that if my strengths are out there, right, and I'm in some sort of competition business or whatever, are the judges, quote judges, who are my peers, going to look at my weaknesses and say, look he's weak in all these areas, and use that against my strengths, so that, they ignore my strengths and say, well, here's all your weaknesses, dude.
Well, if you were in competition or something like that, let's say you were a wrestler and you found out about somebody's weaknesses, you probably would try to explore that. But what you would need to do is you would need to improve your strengths so much that would overcome their ability to capitalize on your weaknesses.
But I have so many.
Well,
but this is a very important for people in general. But certainly for people who are in business, because as Rich says, the competition out there will try to exploit your weaknesses. And,
absolutely, but that's part of business.
It is. But if your strengths can carry you through that, that's what you want to rely on. That's where you want to put your efforts going forward.
Exactly. And let them try to attack you at your weaknesses as long as they want to. But you're not going to improve your weaknesses as much as you're going to improve your strengths.
So they aren't going to attack your strengths because you're too strong.
Exactly.
Whoa.
And maybe if they see those strengths, they'll not go after you at all.
Exactly. It's like a suit of armor almost.
Well, you just look at all the greatest businessmen. They've always played to their strength, Bill Gates.
I was just thinking Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Yeah. And he had a certain personality, and he played to his strengths, and he played to everybody's strengths that was in his organization. If you didn't have strengths that he needed, you were not there very long.
Right.
I mean, the movie about him showed that very clearly. And so, and people like who are good computer programmers, they got... Think of his weaknesses is not personality.
No, it always wasn't.
But he kept improving himself on computers, and he kept up with the computers as they progressed. And if he had tried to work on his weakness, which is being effervescent and all of that, he probably would have
People skills.
He probably would have not done it well.
You look at politicians, too. The politicians who work with their strengths and work on those strengths, play to those strengths, and sort of don't let the weaknesses worry them. They're the ones who go the furthest. They're the ones who are the real leaders.
Exactly.
And I always got people to cover my weaknesses. No, I mean it. My weaknesses were always administrivia.
That is exactly what you need to do. It's what you need to do as a small business person. Find what your weaknesses are. Hire someone to take care of your weaknesses.
Yeah. Someone that has that as a strength.
Exactly. That's what I did.
Exactly. So that's why you were successful.
Well, so as you in my own mind.
So as you coach individuals, do you not only teach them how to figure out their own strengths, but others as well?
Yeah, and how to interact with people's strengths,
right?
That may be opposed to what they're used to doing or having to deal with them. Because if you understand what their strengths are and you use those effectively, if they're an employee, then that's going to be so much better for you. rather than trying to complain about somebody's weaknesses, which they're not going to get better, any better at doing any of those weaknesses, and improving those weaknesses.
All right. One of the strengths that SCORE Orlando has going for it is this radio show called What's the Score, folks, because they are reaching into markets that have yet been touched by other SCORE organizations and other organizations. And that is because radio is such an effective way to get your message out into the community. You can zero in on that market that you want to target, and you can spend your money wisely. And one way to do that is by visiting a station like Salem Communications' stable of stations here in Orlando. They have 4 stations now so that you can specifically choose the target that you want to reach and focus on that. You can either do it by advertising or by having your very own show just like this one here. And the best way to find out about how to do that is call Bill Files. He's the station manager here at Salem Communications Orlando. Bill Files' number is 407-618-1760. And Bill would love to give you a tour around the station and show you how reasonable the charges are to be on radio. That's Bill Files, 407-618-1760. We'll be right back. Here we go again with What's the Score? Welcome back to the show, folks. Christopher Hart here along with Rich Jaeckle, and our guest today is Martin Tier. He is a SCORE counselor. He's also a life coach. How can somebody get a hold of you if they want to have you give them some coaching, coach them up a little bit?
Well, the best way is to call my number. It's 407-761-5276.
All right, you better say that one more time.
407-761-5276.
Okay. And, of course, you are also a SCORE counselor, as I said. Your specialty over there is nonprofit organizations. How did you get involved in that?
Well, when I went to graduate school and I studied experimental psychology. And experimental psychology, particularly how the brain worked. I was interested in how the brain worked and doing research on that. And experimental psychology is research, and research means grants. And so I had to learn how to write grants very quickly to get funding to do my research for my master's degree. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote several grants in my master's program, and wrote one grant that was funded by the National Science Foundation that funded 8 students for a summer for a research project. And so I got started with that. And then my professor was working with a nonprofit group in Eastern Kentucky where they were setting up doing research on healthcare and healthcare financing. We set up health clinics throughout Eastern Kentucky. We wrote a lot of grants, and then we were administering how that program worked. And so that's where my first entry into nonprofits.
I would presume the organizations you were seeking the grants from included both private charitable organizations and the government organizations?
Yes, it was a wide combination. It was the federal government, county government, state government, local foundations. And so it was a broad coalition that came together that we were able to, by combining 5 district health departments 5 county health departments into one district health department, we were able to save enough money to set up clinics, health clinics and dental clinics in 5 counties. Rather than having a lot of overhead, we set up things that would help the actual people who needed service.
Okay. At any point, did you set up your own nonprofit organizations?
I have set up a couple of nonprofit, working with other people, and throughout my career, I've done all sorts of work in nonprofits, from working in nonprofits to consulting with nonprofits to being on the board to being an executive director of nonprofits. And so I have a broad range. I've actually taught classes on nonprofits also.
How come you didn't get into, like, writing grants and stuff? It seemed that it would be very lucrative business.
I did, yes. I wrote a lot of grants. I wrote... Individually, I've written over $3 million worth of grants, and I've written many more grants with other people. And I've worked with a lot of people to do all sorts of grants, from social services to medical research.
What, were you paid for it?
Oh, yeah, I was paid for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was paid for it.
All right. So
I worked for Orlando Regional. I've worked for several other companies around, social service agencies, so I've done a lot.
What would you say would be the biggest misperception people have when they come to you at SCORE about nonprofit organizations?
I think the biggest misconception would be that they're going to start a nonprofit and right away they're going to get grants, and that's how they're going to fund the the nonprofit, and which is far from the truth. It takes a long time to get a grant. You have to be established. If you want to get grants to keep operating, you have to establish that you are a worthy organization, that you have a organization that's solid and that is going to be around for a while. People are not going to give a lot of money to somebody who's just starting up without a track record. So you have to start very slow. And if you don't have some support from the people in the community who are giving money for this as grassroots, you probably are not going to get a grant, because the grantors are going to look at, is there community support for this?
You know, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I work in the prisons and stuff, and there's what they call halfway houses, and you're familiar with that, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So a lot of these places are community funded, et cetera, that bring these guys in, and maybe there's 6 bedrooms or something, and they teach them how to go back into the community. Mm-hmm. Well, what I found out is that they've declined so many of these things, and it wasn't for monetary reasons. Mm-hmm. It just dawned on me. It was for the reason you just said. It has to be accepted by the community.
Exactly.
And if the community doesn't want this house full of ex-felons, they aren't going to have it, right?
Exactly.
So that's why a lot of these halfway houses fail.
Exactly.
It's not the monetary thing.
You have to have some pre-planning on a lot of things that you do to start a nonprofit, just like you would a business. Many people think just because it's doing good to the community, everybody's going to
embrace
it, but it's not necessarily true. There's always resistance to a lot of things that you think may be good. They could be good, but maybe just not the right place at the right time.
Is it very expensive to set up a nonprofit organization?
It's more expensive than a for-profit.
Why is that?
Because one thing that you have to do is you have to get an IRS designation of a 501c3, which is their designation for a nonprofit.
All right. So we've heard about that a lot in the media the last year or two.
And to get that designation, it costs $400 at least. For a small organization, it costs $800 if you're a larger organization trying to organize. So that is a big hurdle for a lot of people trying to get into nonprofits. If they cannot raise that $400 initially, they're not going to go anywhere. And a lot of people will come in and say, well, how do I raise that money? Well, that's where the entrepreneur part comes in. If you don't have the community support that's willing to give you $400 to form a 501c3, there may not be support for that. And that happens to a lot of people who come in to SCORE.
So if you can't raise the $400, you shouldn't even be thinking about starting a nonprofit.
Right.
Well, I would imagine most people are planning to fund it themselves, at least to begin with.
And some people will do that. They will pay the $400, particularly if they're starting a nonprofit that's like a school, where they know that they have some funding coming in, because there is money available through the state and through other agencies for things like autism, special education for kids, and those can be nonprofits. And so somebody may put up that $400 because they know that they have a good chance of getting funding in the future. But if you start up just something to give out food to someone, that's homeless, and you're going to fund it yourself, that is and you don't know where the funding is coming from after that, that's a big hurdle.
Are there any requirements on nonprofits as to how much money that they raise must go into the purpose that they are designed to serve?
There is a state laws now that regulate that, and they've just changed those because they found out several years ago that there were nonprofit agencies who were not playing by the rules that they should be playing by, and they were having businesses intermixed with the nonprofit, and they were just funneling money from the nonprofit to their businesses. And the state of Florida has just changed the rules this past year to stop that sort of thing. So there's no definite rule, but there is oversight by the state government and there's oversight by the federal government. If they find out that this is going on, there are some severe penalties.
So don't think you can set up a nonprofit to sort of hide profits.
Right. And people have tried to do that, and they're stopping that. There was loopholes, particularly here in Florida, several years ago, but those have been taken care of.
Eliminated.
Well, when you file for your S corporation, which every nonprofit has to be, right?
Right.
Okay. You file for your S corporation, you have to have a charter. And in that charter, or your 501c3, you have to have a charter which is explained exactly what the function and the purpose of the nonprofit is. Is that correct?
That's correct. They generally call that the mission. So you have to have a mission, and the mission has to be a community-based benefit for the community.
Okay, and if you stray from that, you're liable.
You're liable.
Oh, okay.
And you're not operating as a corporation as you have set it up, and the IRS and the state can come after you with felony charges as far as the state goes.
Wow. Okay.
Is a foundation the same as a nonprofit corporation?
It is a type of nonprofit. There are several types of nonprofits. So a foundation generally raises money to give out money to other organizations. So they would have, that's their purpose, is to raise money so that they can fund a lot of different organizations, maybe particularly in the area they're interested in, or maybe some of the big foundations here in or the Central Florida area, like Dr. Phillips and the Edith Bush Foundation. They raise money to give to a lot of different charities.
Right.
And so that's what their foundations are for. So they give, a nonprofit raises money to give money to other nonprofits. And they're actually doing work.
Do you ever counsel people who come to you with the idea that they want or need a nonprofit, that that's not what they need after all?
Yes. I've told several people, definitely, you should not be doing this. They're trying to do it all by themselves. And first of all, they need a board to do it. And if they're trying to do it all themselves, and they're going to do something really good in the community, it's not going to work. You can't run it all by yourself and do a lot of these things that they want to do. That's a little overboard. Had one woman call me the other day while I was at SCORE and ask, I want to give to this ministry that I'm interested in. Should I start a nonprofit so I can raise money to do that, or should I just start a business and then give some money to that business from the products I sell? I said, you should not start a nonprofit. You should, if you want to do that, the best way to do that is by giving from whatever business that you have. And a lot of businesses will, in their charter, have a provision where they will give money to nonprofits as just a community benefit that they want to do as a business.
It's a tax write-off, too.
Exactly, yes.
So it behooves them to do that. Like Public sets aside community funds for nonprofits.
And that's why they have the 501c3, so you can take the tax deductions when you do give to that. So it makes sense to have a business giving them money rather than trying to form a nonprofit.
Absolutely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't nonprofits have to make their books available to the public?
Yes, they do. And that's a big difference between a profit company and a nonprofit. They are beholden to the community, and no one owns a nonprofit. The state and the federal government consider the nonprofit being owned by the community. So you can start a nonprofit and be the founder, but that is not your nonprofit.
So everybody thinks the founder is the owner.
No.
And this is not it.
No, it's not the owner. The founder can be dismissed by the board if they're not happy with the way things go. And then once you get a big operation, sometimes you get 15, 16 members on a board of directors for a nonprofit, they will let an executive director go, who was the founder? And people have come to me at SCORE asking that question, how do I get my nonprofit back?
All right. Wow. All right. Well, don't go away, folks, because we'll be right back after this short break. And don't forget, you are listening to What's the Score, a show brought to you as a compliment of Salem Media Group Orlando. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to What's the Score, folks. Thanks for being with us today, and please don't forget to keep telling your friends and family all about us. This show is gaining in popularity, and we want to thank you ever so much for that. Also, if you have ideas, suggestions, questions for us, you can send them to us at score@nationalec.org. That's score@nationalec.org. And remember, the website for SCORE Orlando is scoreorlando.org. Real simple. And they have all the events coming up there on their website. They have the ability to register for them. The Biz Fest, which is coming up on May 19th. If you want to get involved in the Pitch Fest for that, they will open the
15th of March.
Exactly. They'll open it up on the 15th of March for your applications to be in the Pitch Fest. And then if you're wondering what the Pitch Fest is like, we had talked about it on our show last week, but just imagine like the Shark Tank. That's what the Pitch Fest is. And it'll be a lot of fun, and that's coming up in May. And don't forget, if you are a veteran, the Veterans Business Initiative is once again going to be this Thursday morning at SCORE. It's free for you vets. Come on out. There will be people people there who will be hiring. There'll be people there who can help you get training. And, of course, SCORE will be there to help you with entrepreneur advice.
Get off your bar stools and come on down.
You can go afterwards with Rich. And
there you go.
All right, 407-420-4844 is the number for SCORE at the Entrepreneur Center, which, of course, is located in the Fashion Square Mall between JCPenney and good old Sears Roebuck. And so today we're talking with Martin Tier. He's a SCORE counselor. Also, he's a life coach. If you want to take advantage of his coaching skills, you can give him a call at 407-761-5276. That's Martin Tier, 407-761-5276. He also counsels people at SCORE on nonprofit organizations, and that's what we've been talking about. And, Rich, you had a question about boards.
Well, number one, he scares me. He scares me while he's sitting here looking right at me and just keeps shaking his head. There's something not right with this thing. So, I may be a little bit wacky, but not to that extent. Yeah, I did. You've mentioned, Martin, that several times boards. Number one, you said a board of 3 members, but then you just mentioned a board of 15 members. I don't get it.
Okay. Well, the law requires and the IRS requires a board of at least 3 members
to start.
To start, you can start with. You have to have at least 3 members to start. You can start with as many as you want. There's no limit on it, but of course, the more board members you have, the more time you're going to have to take with the board, and less time you can spend on doing what your projects are for. So a small project doesn't want to have a large board to begin with. They want to have a small board, and then as they grow, they can grow the board. But when you get to a point where you are a big organization and you have 15 to 25 board members, and there's some that are that big, the executive director is only taking care of that board and not able to take care of the day-to-day business of providing services. So that a board can become difficult to deal with in large organizations.
Can you just make sure we understand this out here? If you don't have a board, you don't have a nonprofit.
That's correct.
A board of at least 3 people. And this is
interesting.
Well, it's very important, too, and this goes in line with what Martin was saying in the prior segment, is that when you have a nonprofit, you don't own it. And what you must understand is when you set up a nonprofit organization, you are giving away a tremendous amount of control over that organization, are you not?
You are, yes. You definitely are giving a lot of control over to that because, as I said before, if the board does not think you're performing as the way that they would like to see you perform, or they want to go in a different direction than you originally intended by forming this, then they can do that. They can expand what they want to do, or they can contract what was.
Yeah, they can essentially vote you out.
The board is in control. When you own a business as a profit business, you own that business. You can say, I have 90% of this stock, and maybe another person has 10%. You can say that. You cannot say that in a nonprofit because the board does not own it. The person does not own it. It is owned by the community, and the board runs it.
The community owns it.
Right. And now you can be an employee of that agency and be the executive director and being paid, let's say, and you have a board of 3 members and you're one of that 3 members, you cannot decide your salary.
Right.
You have to step out of that boardroom when those other 2 people are making the decision on your salary, and that's the way. And if you try to interfere in that, then you're breaking corporate regulations.
You could be in trouble with the SEC, the IRS. But this is very important. I just want to stress this: is that nonprofits aren't for people who want to be in control of things, because you are giving that control away from the get-go.
Day one.
Right.
From day one.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to have a purpose that you want to accomplish in the community. That's the driving force, and that takes over from what your personal desires are. Because if you've got to have a real good nonprofit and is doing a lot of work, and you're not able to keep up as an executive director, they probably will let you go.
Yeah.
And as I say, that happens a lot. Because people say, it's mine. No, it's not yours.
It's my dream. It's my dream, but I can't even live it.
And right. And you need, any assets that a nonprofit owns, when it's dissolved, goes to another nonprofit. So no one can keep that.
I didn't know that.
And that is required in the bylaws of every nonprofit by the IRS.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I knew that foundations have to continue the foundation, basically, or I guess a nonprofit.
But it goes to another nonprofit.
Right, yeah, because it's nonprofit. It can't go into the profit pool, so to speak.
Exactly.
But, we hear a lot about foundations set up by like the Kennedys, the Clintons, or the Bushes, or whoever. They have these foundations that seem to survive them and provide for their children.
Right.
Are they set up originally to do that, or do they just sort of renew the foundation with each generation?
Those are generally set up to do that from the beginning, because even if you're starting a nonprofit as a small group, you want to think about succession. If you want that good work that you're doing to continue, outlast you, then you should think about that. And if you're really, really concerned about that, you should be happy that you've created something that's continued on past what your ability to run that organization is. You started it and it got good, and it's going on. You've done a very good job for the community. You
have to have a board of at least 3. Can they be family members?
That's a good question. No, they 3 cannot. You cannot have 2 members on a 3-person board that is a family member or has interlocking business connections.
You cannot.
If you have 2, then you have to have 2 more people so that you do not have board control.
I see.
The critical factor is board control. Does someone have a leverage on controlling the board?
Influencer.
Right. So if you have some influence that is paramount to the operation of that board, then that is not allowed by the IRS. And the state doesn't care about that. The IRS does.
I was going to say, do different states have different regulations concerning nonprofits?
Yes, they do. And but they don't make much difference as far as the IRS is concerned.
I see. If I set up a nonprofit in Florida, can I do business as a nonprofit in the other 49 states?
You can. You have to follow their rules, though.
Of those particular states?
Yes, in those particular states.
Including Florida.
Let's say you were outside and had a nonprofit from Georgia and you wanted to raise money here in Florida. You still have to register with the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services as a fundraising entity because you're doing it in the state. Same way with other states.
All right.
You're here.
Grant writing. You said earlier that as you're just starting out with your nonprofit, don't expect to get the grants. A lot of grants.
Right.
How do you end up getting grants? I mean, that's sort of a catch-22, more or less.
It is a little bit of catch-22. You have to have enough to start to show that you can operate as a functioning agency. Then you can go to smaller granting agencies, which are Walmart, Target, Winn-Dixie. A lot of these bigger companies have, each store has a community fund that they will provide certain things to for smaller business. For one of the things that Target will do is they will fund field trips for students. It can be a nonprofit student, can be a school. That's one unusual thing that they will fund. There's some other things. Each one of those stores, each one of those companies has a guideline of what they will fund and what they will not fund. So you have to understand what you want and does it follow under their guidelines. And you can get a small grant. It's several small grants to show that you can actually perform the work that you say you're going to work. Then you can go to use that leverage to go for bigger grants.
And is there a registry to find out where these organizations are and what they give grants out for?
Definitely. There are websites. There are databases that you can go to. And there is a really good resource here in the Central Florida area, and that's the Rollins College Philanthropy and Nonprofit Center. And every nonprofit organization that wants to be serious about growing should be a member of that because they have a lot of resources. They have courses. They have workshops and just everything you need. They have a library. They have databases that you can use. So that is a very good source.
And you are responsible for or interact with the SCORE nonprofit stuff, right?
Right.
The course we offer in conjunction with Rollins, right?
Right, yeah. We have.
Can you explain that relationship?
Certainly. SCORE and the Rollins College Philanthropy and Nonprofit Center combined to have a course for starting your nonprofit. And we have it about every other month. And it's a course where you can get all the information you need to get started. It's a very good consolidated course to understand all the ins and outs of how to start a nonprofit and the rules you'll need to follow.
And as you see, folks, there are a lot of ins and outs, and we've just scratched the surface here today.
We have.
And we're just about out of time. But Martin Tier, I want to thank you for being with us and sharing your expertise with us, both on life counseling and nonprofits.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you won't see me anymore.
Once again, folks, if you want to consult with Martin about a nonprofit organization, just contact him at SCORE. The SCORE office number is 407-420-4844. They're located, once again, in the Entrepreneur Center, Fashion Square Mall. If you would like to talk to Martin about life counseling, life coaching, contact him at 407-761-5276. And next week, we're going to have a representative from the
Web.com.
Web.com is going to be with us next week.
The amateur pro-am thing for golfers, it's the it's the one below the PGA.
There you go. All right.
The Web.com.
All right.
Really? I'm serious. They have their own series, yeah.
Okay.
Like a PGA.
Yeah, Golfers Association. All right. But anyway, we'll be talking about that next week. Martin, thanks for being with us. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. And don't forget to tell your friends and family all about What's the Score. Send those questions and comments to score@nationalec.org. And we want to thank Salem Media Group for making this show possible as a public service project. We'll be back next week with more of What's the Score.
See ya.